Welcome to Astrology Heals, a podcast that brings you messages of hope and healing from the planets. I'm your host, Marina Ormes, author and founder of Astrology Heals. I'm an evolutionary and transformational astrologer of over 30 years. My purpose is to help you live your authentic truth with clarity, courage, and creative power. Welcome to episode 2 of Astrology Heals, Clarity, Courage, and Creative Power. I'm your host, Marina Ormes, and today I would like to talk about the week of June 14th to 20th. So focusing in on the energies that are in this week ahead, but looking too at the bigger picture of what the outer planets reveal about the times we are moving through. And my intention is to give you kind of that bigger bird's eye view, a little bit of a zoom out to see where those outer planets are, to get a sense of the context of where we are in time in our unfolding journey of planetary cycles, then to bring it back to the here and now and give kind of an overview of the week and how we can think about where we are as we move through the week ahead. So for the week of June 14th to 20th, we have some very interesting things happening. First of all, the new moon in Gemini on Sunday, June 14th at 7:53 p.m. at 24 degrees Gemini. So that new moon bringing the beginning of the next moon cycle, completing the previous moon cycle that began with the Taurus new moon. So we're completing that chapter of working on nourishment, sustenance, how we can maintain movement and new directions, things we've initiated, but we have to keep that momentum moving forward. So whatever new projects, new directions, new thinking, new identity, whatever is new in your life that began, around April of this year, March, April of 2026, because that's when we had all of that Aries energy bringing in the energy of new beginnings that really started with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th of this year. So we'll come back to that. But for now, we're moving through the chapters of each moon cycle. So we had the Aries moon cycle, and now we're just finishing basically the Taurus moon cycle. So we're wrapping up themes that have to do with how we are going to sustain ourselves, sustain the new directions, the new projects that we've put in motion. How are we going to stay grounded? How are we focusing on sustainability and really our day-to-day routines, habits, practices, and ways of nourishing ourselves so that we can keep up the work of whatever it is we have begun. So as we come to the end of that Taurus moon cycle, we've thought about what we value, what we're grateful for, what brings pleasure into our lives. Maybe start some new habits, practices, or routines that are going to help keep you going. Also systems, right? Putting some systems in place that can help you continue in the new direction you're moving. So as we begin with the Gemini new moon, then we begin the next chapter, which is focused on information. Gemini is about communication. It is about how our minds process ideas, thinking, how we put things into words, how we make sense of the information that is around us, how we ask questions, how we get curious. This moon cycle, the one beginning with the June 14th new moon in Gemini, is about seeking more information. So we're building from that Taurus. First, we have the Aries, putting things in new directions. Then the Taurus, getting grounded and implementation. And now the Gemini, what do we not know? As we begin to consider, where do we need more information? Where do we need to understand something better? Where do we need to ask questions? What is it that we don't know yet? And how can we move in ways that help us seek the answers to the questions we still have? We need to get really curious. And that is the power of Gemini, is the ability to open your mind, to think new thoughts, to seek out new input, asking those deeper questions, not accepting what you see at face value, but looking deeper, getting inquisitive, saying, well, thank you for sharing that, but I'm going to go read a book. I'm going to go ask someone else. I'm going to go look somewhere else. And it's hard to talk about Gemini without thinking about Uranus. Outer planet Uranus is going to stay in Gemini until 2032 to 2033. In the sign of Gemini, Uranus brings higher level thinking, higher levels of technology, new ideas that come from places that are unknown. So truly, truly, those lightning bolts of insight that shake up, the earthquake that can bring in new thinking, that cracks the facade, that allows us to see things in new ways and think about things in new ways. So as we embark on this Gemini moon cycle, we have the energy of Uranus in Gemini also reminding us that information can come in quite suddenly, can shift our thinking very quickly. The energy of a lightning bolt, an epiphany, a new idea popping into existence. So things that seem on the surface to be answered or simple or presented in a way that this is truth and there's no more question to ask, those are the kinds of things where we want to ask deeper questions, because if something is being presented as truth, it is not being presented as something that can change. And information, as we know, can change and will change with Uranus in Gemini. So the other piece about this is technology. With artificial intelligence, technology and communications that have changed so radically in recent years and decades, the ways we communicate are completely different than the ways our parents, our grandparents communicated. We want to be thinking, and this moon cycle activates how we exchange information, but also reminds us that the technologies we use, including artificial intelligence, are helping us tap into these radically different ways of exchanging information. At the same time, don't have all the answers. And artificial intelligence has a limited view of information, right? It's biased by how it has been trained and how the programmers approach it and all of those kinds of things. So we have the technology of communication, but I think what we don't talk enough about is the technology of human intelligence, and how our human intelligence can be so much more powerful than the artificial intelligence, and also more unpredictable, right? we can become more unpredictable in our own thinking and not accepting, for example, AI or whatever kind of information is being presented as the truth. So we can use our human thinking and our human consciousness to tap into the new ideas, the insights, the epiphanies, and the ways of communicating with each other and sparking off of one another's ideas to innovate. And that is what artificial intelligence cannot do, right? It does not innovate. It recycles. So artificial intelligence and technology are big themes to contend with as a society. But we also need to know that technology of human intelligence is far more powerful than we may be giving it credit for. How do we tap into those new ways of thinking? How do we create the conditions in which those insights can appear, right? The lightning bolt comes in, or the light bulb turns on, right? Those are some good electricity related themes, but we also can have those sudden shifts in thinking, those aha moments, those solutions. So we're going to work with this Gemini moon cycle to access our curiosities, right? So get into a mind of wonder, ask questions. And here's the key: don't answer the questions, because when you ask the question and leave open space, empty space without an answer, that empty space attracts new information, new ideas, new solutions to old problems. So we can work with this Gemini moon cycle to invite in shifts in thinking and shifts in perspective and new ideas. And we can do that alone or together. We can do it in conversation. We can do it in dialogue. We can do it in shared thinking out loud with another person. We can also do it in our own process. So if you have something on a personal level that you are working with, you could do some journaling and just explore your thinking, your ideas without any goal or determination of what the outcome of your thinking is or should be, but just exploring, right? That is creating space. Or doing something like going for a walk, staring out the window, sitting and sipping a cup of tea, shower thoughts. All of these things are ways that we create empty space. We create nothing. And in that nothingness, new ideas, new thinking, and answers can arrive. So you see that the difference is that we're not creating the answer. We're not seeking the answer or finding it. We're not finding it on our computers or our phones. We're opening our minds to how we might think differently. And in that epiphany or that insight, we might have an idea you might have an impulse to go to the library. You might have an impulse to talk to a certain friend. You might have a sudden impulse or urge to watch a movie or read a book or anything that just kind of nudges you to explore something that doesn't seem like it's obviously connected to what it is you want to learn more about. But you never know, right? That is the synchronicity of finding then something that could be opening a door in ways you never expected. These are the kinds of things we want to create on purpose. We want to work with those conditions to support ourselves in accessing these higher insights, ideas, and new thinking, and to think of ourselves as more intelligent than the computers, because we are. We have that capacity to connect things in new ways, to think outside the box. So let's support ourselves in getting curious and asking questions and not filling in the answers, because that creates the empty space that invites in the lightning bolt of insight. And we don't know where it's going to take us. That's the whole point. So that is the June 14th new moon in Gemini. And with that new moon, we have the beginning of a cycle. And so it's a perfect time to set your intentions related to what you want to know more about, what you want to understand better, where you might experience something that's not working in your life and you'd like to open to new thinking or an insight or some sort of solution that could help you see things differently or open a door to seeing how to solve a problem. So that's the new moon on June 14th. And as we move through the week, let's look at the moon signs. So the moon is in Gemini on Monday, June 15th. The moon goes into Cancer at 5:13 a.m. Pacific time. That takes us into the emotional, feeling-based sign of Cancer. So the moon is just now beginning its moon cycle, right? Beginning to move away from the exact new moon and moving into that Cancer moon vibe that is about healing, feeling, caring, and there's a lot of sensitivity with that Cancer moon. 5:04 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, June 17th, the moon goes into Leo, where we move into that more expressive outward energy of what we need to share, how what's been moving on the inside needs to move and be seen externally. So it's a great time for creativity, for expression, for speaking up, for speaking out, for being your true self and shining your light and living out loud. Then on Friday, June 19th, the moon goes into Virgo at 7:36 a.m. Pacific time, bringing us into that earthy vibe. And so with the Virgo moon, we're now looking at what details need to be attended to. How are we going to roll up our sleeves and get to work and make things the way we want them to be? So we're polishing and perfecting and repairing and improving upon what we worked on, what we moved outward with the Leo moon. The moon is waxing, so it's getting bigger. And as we move away from that new moon, we'll begin to see that waxing crescent moon just after sunset. Check the skies right after sunset and watch for that first night when you can see that crescent moon in the western horizon. That will be the beginning of the visibility of the moon, right? Of course, when it is new, we don't see it. So when we can first see that glimpse, that thin sliver of the moon, it's giving us the hope and the promise of what is to come and what will build as we move through the moon cycle. So we've got the Virgo moon on Friday and Saturday, and then next Sunday, June 21st, the sun goes into Cancer, and we have the moon going into Libra and forming first quarter moon with the moon in a square to the sun. So that'll be next Sunday. Meanwhile, this week, we can also look forward to a cradle formation that is giving us the energy that is currently building in the sky. And so we have outer planets, Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, all in this double sextile pattern. So if you can imagine a six-pointed star, and you could even draw it if it helps you to visualize it. And then you pick one of the points and take that one and the one next to it and the one next to it. Those are the locations of the three planets relative to one another in the zodiac. 1, 2, 3 points of the six-pointed star. What's happening this week is that Venus is moving into the fourth point. So now you've got the 1, 2, 3 points, add a fourth point, and we're missing 5 and 6 from this configuration, but we'll have 4 points of a six-pointed star. as Venus steps into that fourth position at 5 degrees Leo, 4 to 5 degrees Leo in there. And the moon, by the way, once the moon goes into Leo, will join Venus in that fourth position. So what we have is what we call a cradle formation in astrology. And later this summer in July, we will have Jupiter moving into that fourth position. Venus moves through it pretty quickly. The moon moves even more quickly through that point once a month. In fact, the moon activates that point and other points in that 6-pointed star. So in July, we will have Jupiter, slower moving planet, 5th outermost planet, moving into that fourth position. But this week, Venus will be in that position, creating a cradle, emphasizing opening doors, wind in the sails, support that is blowing you where you want to go. So the whole point is that you want to make sure you are pointed in the right direction. You want to know who you are. You want to know what you want. You want to know what's important to you, what matters, and why. You want to know what you care about. You want to know what your heart wants. And if you have all of those in place, even partially in place, like you don't have to fully be able to articulate it, but if you have the ability to feel it in your body or to know, hey, this doesn't feel like it, this is not the thing my heart and soul wants, then you know that's not what you want support for. What you want this support for is the things that make you feel alive, awaken your creative life force energy, things that bring joy, that make you happy. So journal a little bit about what makes you feel happy, what brings joy into your life. What do you want? What do you care about? What matters to you? Because if you're clear about those things, these planets and this alignment of the planets in a cradle formation, 2 trines, 3 sextiles, and an opposition. It's a dynamic energy, especially with the opposition, but it's also support, the help and assistance for whatever it is you are putting in motion. And since we're on this chapter of Gemini, beginning to open our minds and ask questions and explore new ideas, new thinking, we want to open the doors to creating, to moving forward in the things that we've put in motion, the things we want to bring to fruition in our lives. So it could be creative work. It could be some healing you want for yourself or in a relationship. But collecting the information and opening your mind to how you might get there, right? What are the ideas that are going to help you get from point A to point B? Because it might not be what you think it's going to be. And this Gemini moon cycle will help you get there. These open doors of the energy of these sextiles bring support, bring the wind to blow you where you want to go. So know where you want to go, but also be open in your mind and heart to how you're going to get there and what that could look like, because new perspectives are heading your way. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. I will be here next week with our next podcast episode. Thank you so much for subscribing and rating Astrology Heals wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, be well. This is Marina Ormes. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Astrology Heals, Clarity, Courage, and Creative Power. If you'd like to dive in a little deeper with this material, I invite you to join my member community at transformationalastrology.com. There, we work together to unlock the energy of each unique moon cycle through guided meditations, exercises, and more to support you in your journey to be your best self. and to be the best you can be to make a positive difference in the world around you. That's transformationalastrology.com. Check it out. You can also find daily Mood of the Day videos on my YouTube channel at Astrology Heals. See you there.